You're listening to the Light Over Time podcast with David Sargent and Korey Bartos. It is February 16th, 2025, and a lot has been going on. So David's sleep deprived. We'll get into that a little bit. Our Discord has been popping off pretty good. It's still kind of in like the closed beta.
We have that to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot going on. We're probably going to open the floodgates on that a little bit soon. So if you're interested in the Discord, just like reach out to us. We'll probably be totally happy to have you join in if you want to talk photography, gear, your process, your projects. We're getting into like the nitty gritty. It's really nice. I've been off of social media a lot more because of our Discord. It's excellent. Elle and I have a trip planned that I'm going to talk about, as well as some birding gear and things like that. Maybe some talks about the wanting to connect with the Michigan Audubon. We were going to do a walk today. The Capital City Audubon was going to do a bird walk, and it's really gross out, so that sucks. I know I was pretty disappointed, but we'll get to some good birding soon. So, yeah. A lot has happened. I'm going to jump right into kind of what you've been up to. I know you have had a couple of shoots, so I definitely want to hear about your shoot with the snowboarding rail stuff. There's a ton. So wherever you want to start, if you want to start from today and work back, or if you want to do whatever, I'm open to hearing about it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll talk about Rail Jam. That was a fun one. That's probably like the most intense thing I've done since the last show. Very new to me, and I might have brought it up on the last show, but since I've done it, there's just a lot I can kind of go over. So if I didn't, Rail Jam is one of the events inside of the Heike Lunta Winter Festival up here in, I guess it takes place in Negaunee, but kind of almost it feels like the whole of UP, or at least Marquette County, this area celebrates this Heike Lunta idea, and I think I'm not sure exactly like where it originates. It might be Finnish, if I'm not mistaken. But it's like the god of winter snow or something like that. And
Sure.
then so it's just a celebration of having good snow to do good snow fun activities. And it ties into like ecotourism and things like that up here.
Yeah.
So between like the sled dog races that just are happening right now. Actually, they should have finished up about an hour ago.
Nice.
The sled dog races couldn't happen the last 2 years because of the lack of snow. And so like on the radio, you'd hear like the Heike Lunta song and like people like, just hyping themselves up for a good snow to do stuff in. So Rail Jam is one of those things. And they did that. They did Heike Lunta last year with the Rail Jam. And I happened to roast coffee right next to where Rail Jam takes place. And I'll keep saying that word, Rail Jam. This is snowboarders and downhill skiers that like to participate in like tricks and jumps and things like that. They set up rails and little jumps. They build up a bunch of snow on a hill and then make a little mini track for these guys to walk up and then go down with their snowboards and skis. And it was just a ton of fun watching this happen. There were if I had to guess, between 1,000 and 2,000 people surrounding Rail Jam.
Can they
in
even fit
Negaunee's
in
not
Negaunee?
a big town.
Yeah, can they fit there?
Yeah. It is a small town. There's probably about that many people that live in all of Negaunee. They were all there. There was bonfires. There was a DJ. There was the brewing company that right next to where I roast out of. They were partying and having people spill out into their off their back doors into the Rail Jam area. So it was just this whole big. It felt like a big Negaunee block party. It was
sweet.
super cool. But Rail Jam is just one event inside of a whole weekend of that stuff going on all over. I only did Rail Jam, but photographing it was so much fun.
Yeah,
like some of the best fun I've had in a long time because it was so new to me.
Sure.
Winter sports activities is not something I have a ton of experience in. And when I have shot winter activities, it's more like hiking and snowshoeing and things like that for like Visit Charlevoix and such.
Right.
But this was completely for me. Like I wasn't trying to get this to anybody. And I get out there. I brought the 150 to 600 because I wasn't sure at what distance they'd have spectators pushed back at.
Sure.
I brought the 28-105 and I brought the 50-1-4. I immediately got out there. I was able to basically sit right on the edge. I could have reached out and touched some of the snowboarders if I'd wanted to, the way they would come up close along. There's like a rail that is really, really close. Anyway, so I took out the 150 to 600 right away because I was like, it'd be cool to get just a couple filled portraits with some of these guys. It was a little dark for the aperture that lens has to be at,
Yeah, that makes sense.
and the shutter speed you have to kind of push up at, just because everything is emphasized at that focal length.
Right.
So I took like 2 shots, and I was like, this is not really cutting it. It really also, when you're filling the frame, naturally you lose context. So I had just wanted to pull in more context. I grabbed the 28 to 105 naturally.
Yeah.
Going from, what is it, 6.3 down to 2.8 definitely brought in a lot more light. I was able to push up to like 1/800th of a second, 1/1000th if I remember right. And oh my gosh, I mean, it started at 7 and I think it ended at 9 or 10, and I shot the whole time. It was
Dang.
just a blast. I mean, we had probably, like, it seemed like 30 snowboarders and maybe that many skiers as well, going down these hills, hitting jumps, literally doing backflips, sliding on the rails, doing all kinds of amazing things that, I wasn't prepared for. I thought people were just going to be going downhill, and it would have been cool to get that. But man, like, I had like a dozen images of like these perfect little inversions, people's completely upside down, and I was like, this is real winter sports action stuff.
Yeah, proper snowboarding.
It was really cool. It just made me want to be able to be in that position more. But this rail jam type event is so unique because it's set up to be accessible to that many people, and it's not like you're on a mountain. So it's just not an environment I'm normally in. So I shot over 3,000 images, I think, or 2,500 images, something like that. And before I left, I connected with one of the snowboarders who was trying to land this one trick where he would get as much speed as he could all the way through. There's like 2 or 3 slopes where you could hit a jump, or you could bypass the jump and continue down and continue getting speed. And he chose in his last few runs, because this was a competition with cash prizes too, so they were incentivized to do what they could. He was getting all the speed to hit this one last built up picnic table. So it ramped up on a picnic table, and so at first he was like, I think he was stalling on it, and then he was like, all right, I want to hit a flip on this. So he bailed it like 4 or 5 times at first, getting speed, hitting the picnic table. He would get the backflip, but just could not land it. Finally, on his last run and the last opportunity anybody had to do anything, he nailed it. I got the shot for him, and before he ran off, I ran up to him and I was like, hey bud, I got your shot. This was incredible. I want to get it to you. And he's like, yo, you got it. He was so excited.
Yeah, that's sick.
So excited. He's like, yeah, if you could send it to me. I got his number. I called and edited that night, as you guys know, and I uploaded it to Google Drive. And within the hour, I had him with his shots, and then I also dumped everything that I got that was usable from all the other participants as well, and he knew most of them.
Yeah,
so he was able to disseminate all these pictures to these guys, and they were so thankful. And that's just one of those situations where I'm not expecting to be paid. No expectations were put on me.
Right.
I connected with the people involved, and it feels really cool to be that connected with what you're doing. And then in the end, everyone's got awesome photos, and they're sharing your work, and people were DMing me left and right going, holy shit, like, you got such a great shot of me. I'm so thankful. And
yeah,
because some of these guys are just not around photographers.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes they try to be, just because of the nature of what they do, but it was just incredible. And I think I got some great shots out of it.
Yeah. I often do some of my best work when there's no expectations and you're just like, you're enjoying it because, it's kind of weird at first when you're doing something new or whatever, but then you start getting really excited. You're like, holy, this is awesome. I'm getting like really great stuff. And then you just, especially when you have free range to shoot that long. I'm sure the 28 to 105 was great for it.
It was great. I've shot 70% of everything with it.
Yeah.
And then I wanted that 1.4 at points.
For sure.
That came in handy for certain different things.
Yeah,
but 28 to 105 just nailed it. Of course it would.
Yeah, that's super dope. I haven't done any snowboarding in a long time, but that was like some of my earliest days doing photography, was like chasing my friends around who like doing that stuff. At one point I was only good enough on a snowboard to move straight and stop and use a camera. So I've never been a snowboarder.
Right.
But that's dope. I definitely like getting into that kind of stuff. I want to do so much more action sports. That's the best part of my job now is doing action sports. I mean, shooting sports is, pretty high action and lots of really, really cool moments. So it's just like tons and tons of really cool shots all the time. But it's super rewarding. But it's cool you were able to get all of that stuff to a bunch of those guys.
Yeah, that was the best part of it because I could have gotten home, with the 100-something shots that I ended up editing and posting them on Instagram, and just how that goes. It's up there and then it's gone the next day or whatever.
Yeah, and who cares, right? Yeah. But
and
when you
those
get
guys are still like jazzed about it,
right?
Like, and it's been weeks,
Yeah, they'll be posting them around for a while and using them as like profile pics and stuff. It's cool.
Yeah.
That's
I've got other things if you want me to keep going, or do you want to bounce it off to you right now?
No. That's totally fine. I was going to ask what else you've been up to. I know that was pretty huge. We talked a little bit about it in the Discord. So again, you'll get a lot of behind the scenes action of what we're doing in between our episodes if you want to be a part of the Discord, because we obviously got a sneaky sneak on some of that, but we didn't hear the story of it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so the other big thing was the UP 200 sled dog races.
Yeah.
I was supposed to shoot it this morning at one of the checkpoints, and I couldn't make it. At 1 a.m., my alarm goes off. 2 a.m., I'm packed up in the car. And as soon as I get out of my garage, I realize like how much snow we got.
Yeah.
And I had to shovel myself out, even though I shoveled, because I back out into an alley off of my garage, and the plows come through once a day at like 5 a.m. or something. And so I shoveled myself last night, going, okay, now I'm prepared. I can just back out and get out of here in the morning. And just a few hours later, because I think I went to sleep at like 8, I woke up at 1. So at 2 o'clock, I looked at how much snow we had, and I had to shovel myself out again.
Yeah.
So I get down the road. So between Ishpeming and Marquette should only be like a 15-minute drive, maybe 20 minutes. And it was like 40 minutes. I could not see the road. It was like warp speed in space, that stuff with the snow flying everywhere.
Yeah.
It's 2:30 in the morning trying to drive.
Yeah, that's disorienting at 2:30.
There's no plows. There's no plows. There's nobody around me. I can't see lines. I can't see anything. So I make it to Marquette, and it was either I'd stay in the right lane and go east to Munising and like just probably a 2-hour drive when it should be an hour, or I stay in the left lane, hit the roundabout, and go into town in Marquette. And I was like, it ain't worth it. Volunteer position. I know for a fact there's many other volunteers who signed up to be at that checkpoint. It just wasn't worth it. So I hit the left lane. I went into Marquette, and it was 3 a.m, and I'm like, what do I do now? Like, I could go back home, go back to bed, but I went to bed like super early, and I'm like, I'm up. So instead, I parked the car and took the camera out 28 to 105 and just walked around downtown Marquette with no cars. Like, it's a blizzard out. All the like business lights are still on, so like you've got neon lights and neon signs and whatever's going on downtown. It's just there's no people, no nothing. And Ryan in the Discord posting his black and white shots inspired me to check out the creative profiles in the creative looks on the Sony camera here. And there's there's 2 black and white creative looks you can use. And I picked one. I don't think I've ever used them before.
Yeah.
I selected it and just went with it. And my gosh, it was so much fun. I don't know how many shots. I probably took like 300 images, and I liked a lot of them on camera. And I need to do that more often.
Yeah.
Just like seeing lines and seeing tonal range, and seeing light differently, because you just can't see the color. It was inspiring, and maybe it was some euphoric feeling of being 3 a.m, and all you hear is like the occasional plow and like the music that they left on at one of the bars or whatever. But it was just strange and inspiring. And I don't know, but I'm gonna look at the images tonight, and I think I'm gonna really like what I took. But if I could back up a couple of days, I did get out Friday evening with my son, and I took the camera and did get some shots of the starting of the UP 200. This is a sled dog race, and it is a qualifier for the Iditarod, and it's a major one. And in fact, there's 3 qualifying sled dog races that take place in the UP alone.
Okay.
And I didn't know that. So the UP 200 starts Friday evening, and there were almost 400 total dogs involved, with like 30 something teams or 40 something teams of sled dog racers, mushers, and they were incredible. Like, we didn't watch them all go off because they were releasing at 2 minute intervals. So my son really was getting cranky at the time. So we watched a couple teams take off, but I got some shots. And my favorite moments were these. It was like pre-flight check for these pilots, but the mushers going up to their dogs and checking the lines and, you know, giving them pats on the head, like, here's your shot, buddy. And every single dog got that moment, and that was such a cool, like, 30 seconds, like 20 seconds with each dog getting that shot. And I was a little worried about, like, it's nighttime, but the ambient street light and the flashlight that was on from these mushers gave me just enough light for a dramatic look in those moments, and those are really cool. I did upload those to my volunteer portal, so I was able to provide something. I did feel bad that I couldn't make it out, but man, it was crazy.
Yeah, you can't risk it, especially up there. It's so gnarly. No. Like, we got it bad in Lansing, and it's like, okay, well, I don't know how I feel about. We went to breakfast this morning, and we are like, well, it's a little dicey, but that's super cool. Some of your shots that I saw, I purposefully didn't take a really good look at them yet because I want to look at them after we had talked about them. But the couple that I saw where you said they were real crunchy was pretty good. It's pretty cool stuff. I freaking love sled dogs. I used to be really, really into them. I wanted to do it when I was a kid. So
I had no idea what breed they really were and how small they are. Yeah. They're smaller dogs, and they're very lean, and they're not, none of the ones that I saw, they were all short-haired dogs. Yeah. I was like, wow, these little dogs go for 300 miles all weekend. It's crazy.
Big dogs can't do it, dude.
Yeah, I guess.
Big dogs would be worn out. They take too much energy. They have bad hips. Like, they're not sled dogs.
I didn't know.
But yeah, they're super cool. I'm gonna have to figure out how I can go up there sometime. I guess my brain completely turned off that exists in Michigan, but I'd love to come up there and shoot that and see that, because that's epic as hell.
Next year, man.
Yeah, I'll have to try to plan for it. That'd be really fun. But yeah, right on. Well, that's some good stuff. Backtracking to the black and white, I have been also, I went in and kind of tweaked one of the creative looks on my new camera, which I'll talk about in a moment. And I was really enjoying it. There's not quite as much like adjustment as you can with like the Fuji recipes, but you can like lift your blacks a little bit. So I can do like the light tweaks. I have a preset in Lightroom called Light Edit that I pretty much do at the start of every single photo that I start, because it's my little curve, and it's a couple of things that I just know that I do every single time. A little vignette with like the max feather and the like most wide midpoint. I do that on pretty much every single shot that I take. But you can kind of dial in just a couple of those things right to the black and white image, and I shoot it raw in JPEG, so I can go in and take them if I want. But yeah, it's interesting to see where, especially like thinking about video stuff, where instead of looking at the subject, which I do when I'm taking normal photography, I'm like trying to like line up the subject in a frame that I like. When I'm shooting black and white, I often feel like I'm trying to set up a scene and trying to set up the lighting like I do when I'm doing all my video work. So it's been kind of interesting, because I was also inspired by Ryan to kind of play around with it. And the last batch of images he put into the Discord was like all tonally wonderful. And it's like you're masterclassing like lighting, because like some of those images I don't take mundane, just like around whatever photos that I enjoy, and all of those are nothing special. Like realistically, he's just like at a retreat with like some people, and he was snapping around, but they look good.
He found the light.
Yeah, he was looking for light, and I mean he's design minded, and he's a super creative guy, so it's not like he's incapable of doing that. So it's cool, because he's coming to photography from a bunch of other different art backgrounds. And really just crushing it. And it's cool, because I needed somebody to kind of light a fire in my ass to like care about it kind of again, right? I'm naturally competitive in a way that like I don't want to do better than people, but people energize me to do better for myself.
Yes, I'm that way too.
When I run out of like self-motivation to like improve myself, when I see other people doing it, I go, wow, I haven't challenged myself at all in months. I have to do it. And it's been great. And as we all know from watching this podcast and talking, I am heavily gear motivated. And I had gotten the A6700 thinking that I was going to have a cool daily camera. I got the 27mm f2.8 from TT Artisans. I was really enjoying it. I was playing with some flash on New Year's, was doing this stuff. And then, it was being used for birding with Elle, right? So she was using my 70-200 GM 2 and the teleconverter and that lens pretty much every day. So I work 3 days in Kazoo and live in Lansing, and I can't just be taking that when she has like mornings or whatever and she wants to bird, because I want to facilitate her birding, right? So I was like, okay, well, I guess I don't have the daily camera I was trying to do. So I've gotten an A7CR.
Nice.
And it is incredible. It is exactly what I wanted. It is tiny. All of the shortcomings, which there are many, as far as how I kind of evaluate all the other cameras that I have bought in the past, are completely subverted by the fact that with this 40mm f2.5 that I also got, this is tiny and insanely powerful for what it is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like min-maxing, right? Like it's not going to be perfect for everything, but it's a 61 megapixel sensor. It crops down to the 26 megapixels that the A6700 has, which is pretty sick. So APS-C mode, it's pretty much the same thing. The 40, I talk about how much 40 millimeters is elite all the time. I think it's the best to like walk around focal length, and this 2.5 is just shallow enough that I can like separate stuff at 40 mil, and not bad, but it has such a nice aperture ring. It's absolutely tiny. It's one of the smallest like models of lenses that Sony makes that still has all their tech in it and everything. So autofocus is fast, it's reliable, it's not noisy. Really impressed. I rented it last year and I talked about it at some point, but I've also tried the 24 mil, and I really love these little G lenses, but this is stellar. Was running the black and white on this, running raw stuff, using it at work for all of that stuff, but I've also been using it for birding.
Nice.
It came with the little grip thing, and it didn't advertise that it was going to come with a grip. I thought that was like something that you had to buy separate, that like screws into the bottom, and it really adds some meat to it, which is amazing.
Sony gives you that with those cameras? By default?
I guess. I don't know if it was a B&H thing or what, but I thought you had to buy it. I didn't think it came with the A7CR.
Interesting. I wonder if that comes with the A7C too.
It doesn't, because I owned that camera.
I didn't think so.
Right.
Yeah.
And I bought it brand new from B&H, and it didn't have that, but this did.
Weird.
I don't.
Was it fitted in the box?
It was like wrapped in the box and in there. Yeah.
Whoa, that's crazy.
So, and it's really,
Cool.
really nice with the 200 to 600.
Good.
I don't know that I'd love it without, and I'm getting used to not having the joystick, so it's less of a burden. I've kind of dialed this camera, like the hotkeys and the custom buttons, a little differently than all my other cameras to kind of try to alleviate some of my issues with this form factor.
Are you able to use the touchpad for focus selection?
Yeah, and I do that, but I have a hotkey to turn it on and off so I don't bump it.
Yeah.
And I've just kind of like had to design and change my mind around how I've been using it. But I was I was really close to getting an A7R5, and it's like over $1,000 more.
Yeah.
And I was just telling myself, I was like, I have to at least give the A7CR a go, because like it's a grand. Like, and I still have the A7 IV at work. I have the A7S III. It's like, dude, you do not need it. But because I have all but completely given, mainly because she won't accept it, the A6700L. And I also just got her on basically kind of like Valentine's Day, but that was just me, sucking up to her. A couple days before, I had ordered the 100 to 400. So she has the Sigma 100 to 400 contemporary. And that was kind of one, she doesn't like carrying around a $3,000 lens setup. Which the freaking 70 to 200 is like $2,800, and the $500 teleconverter. Just
could be overwhelming for someone.
Yeah, she just she wants to be able to take it and not worry about it. And she's gonna feel equally devastated if something happens to the much cheaper lens, but my soul won't be so devastated. So I'll be okay. Which is all worth it to me. Again, facilitating that's perfect. She hasn't shot a ton with it yet, but the reports are that she didn't recognize anything slower or anything. It didn't like get in her way or whatever.
Are you saying you haven't been using it?
I haven't been using it at all yet.
Okay.
I plan to do some tests. So we're going to Tulum in March. She has boards. She kind of wanted to do like a rewarding trip to get through that. Something to look forward
Tulum,
to.
this is Mexico?
Yep. So we booked mid-March to go to down to the Yucatan Peninsula. Has 80% of all the birds in Mexico in it.
I've heard it's crazy.
Which is nuts. So we got like a little jungle like tree house rented.
Cool.
So we'll be amongst the birds. We're not like in the hotel area. I'm not really an ocean beach guy. I'm more of a lake beach guy. So I'm not like bummed. We'll go to the beach, but I don't need to live on it for the week. I'd much rather like look out our door and see a bunch of birds than just water. So that's going to be cool. But I'm thinking like, I don't really want to drag. I'm not like a professional birder guy yet, right? Like I'm not like, trying to take a 200 to 600 and be like really obnoxious with a tripod and
to it though.
I know, but I still get kind of nervous. So I'm going to take the 70 to 200 and teleconverter. It's a little bit more low key and it's not going to be like obnoxious. But then she'll have her whole setup. I'm going to run some tests. I want to see the sharpness differences between the 100 to 400 and the teleconverter with the 70 to 200. Because the way I kind of see it is the 2x teleconverter will diminish the image of the 70 to 200, which is one of Sony's sharpest lenses they make. And if you say you already own a 70 to 200 and you're looking for something to get more reach, is just the benefit of you having the lens that you always use and then getting a little bit more reach from it outweigh just having, a couple $100 more to have a full lens that's longer and sharper and slightly lighter than the setup. So I thought that it was going to be slightly heavier. The 70 to 200 and teleconverter is slightly heavier than the 100 to 400. Wow. So the most annoying thing about it is that it doesn't come with the tripod collar shoe and everything. It's a separate like $100 expense.
Yeah.
But because it's lighter, we're running the Black Rapid strap on the body of the A7C or the A7 6700. I'm gonna kind of weigh if that's gonna work out for balancing and comfort and comfortability, hiking and stuff with it. But if it's kind of annoying, we'll probably end up getting the tripod collar for it.
Sure.
But that's like a TLDR. We'll see. I wouldn't be comfortable.
Sorry, did you say you were going in March?
Yes.
Like this March? Like next month?
Like in
Cool.
basically a month, because I think it's March 16th we'll be in Tulum. So
very cool.
Yeah, well, basically the whole week we'll be there. I'm a little concerned about running the A6700 with like a monopod or something on that lens without the tripod collar. So I feel like it might eventually be a necessity just for like full functionality of that setup. But as far as handhold and walking around, El so far is still pretty like hard and fast. Let's keep moving and find all the birds kind of mode. We don't really like hole up yet. But that might change this year. We'll see how we evolve as birders. But we've been pretty lucky with the like, let's just hike around and not stick in one spot too long.
I have a video for you. I'll send you after this. Scott Keys does a lot of bird photography, and he put out a video about how effective camouflage is. But on top of that, the types of and quantities of birds he would see in a given period. He did his objective of tests as he could between like moving, being still, being camouflaged, and spoiler alert, it helps to not be moving.
Well, yeah, and it does, but it's like, so what kind of images are you looking for? Are you prioritizing?
Yeah, it's a different thing.
Yeah, are you prioritizing photography? Are you prioritizing birding? There's a lot of aspects to it, which I'm sure he goes over in that video.
Yeah, and it was cool to see the results he got and was like, oh, it kind of makes a big difference, actually, like a really big difference. Yeah. But it is an objectively different approach to doing the photography. Yeah. Because probably for you and L, there's more excitement about just going out and doing the thing and being on the move and seeing things as you go, rather than sitting still.
Well, and the difference is, are you doing bird photography or are you birding?
Right. Yeah.
And that's a huge distinction. Like if you're just
trying
trying
to live in both spaces.
Yeah, if you're trying to spot birds and you're trying to just like see some stuff and kind of capture them and kind of got to catch them all style, which is kind of what we're doing, which I don't mind at all. It keeps, especially in the cold. I am not trying to just like sit around in the cold. We did that with the short ear owls a couple times, and one time I thought my hands were going to fall off. So it's just a totally different vibe, but. I do have some pretty gnarly camo I got from my old coworker that I plan to try and hole up. I got a new tripod that's like a little camouflaged. I got some shroudage and stuff, and that's the difference between those really, really beautiful up close photos, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much telephoto range you put on your camera. It's never going to be those really epic shots that you see on Instagram unless you get close to the bird.
That's right. And some of that is because of the camouflage, no moving, getting there before sunrise, and staying in a spot for 2 hours.
Yep.
Those birds could come 5 feet from your lens,
Yeah.
And that's enough.
For like tawas and stuff, I'm definitely going to try and camo up and have like a bug net and, sit.
I want to do Dator like that this year.
Yeah, and sit on the tripod and really get, because like the freaking birds that you see out there, like a million warblers and like tanagers and all the wild stuff. It's not that big of a space. So find like the space that nobody else is sitting at and then let everybody move all the birds to you. They'll probably show up. So, but yeah, so kind of a mismatch of all of what's going on, but we have, some more gear kind of trying to settle into my stuff. I think the A7CR kind of alleviated my like strong desire for an A7V for now.
For today.
Again, like I got free once I realized that I'm just never going to have a hybrid camera that shoots as good a video as A7S3. Once they updated it, like that camera is going to be fine forever. Like it shoots up to 4K 120. Like what am I doing that I need anything more than 4K anything period in low light? It does the thing. So it really frees me up to not really care about trying to upgrade my photo camera unless, again...
Is there any one spec that it's behind on now because it's been so long? Something you're just like, oh, I wish it had that thing.
I mean, it doesn't have like the super AI autofocus stuff, but that's not what I do with video.
Right, sure.
You know what I mean? So it's just not as necessary because you're not trying to nail it all the time. You're trying to have a more naturalistic like movement of the autofocus.
Yeah.
So it's really forgiving. I don't see what an A7V could do for me unless, like, say L outgrows the A6700. Like, again, I want to do tests on full frame A7CR cropped versus crop mode versus the A6700, which is the same amount of megapixels as the crop mode, the APS-C mode of this camera. Versus the two lens setups and kind of really see, because when we were shooting the short ear owls, I'm in APS-C mode on the A7 IV at the time, shooting 15 megapixels, right? And at 25,600 ISO and just pretty sharp compared to hers, which were 11 megapixels more and only 12,800 ISO. So I have an extra stop of light, which she had like a third of a stop in aperture because she was at 5.6. But again, enough that like the A6700 was muddier for that. Now for birds, it's a lot less important. We're not doing a ton of super low light birding and things like that.
Right.
But it shows the fall off, right? It shows a considerable amount of detail loss. Those owl shots were pretty far out, so you're dealing with the fall off anyway because you're pushing at the time 70 to 200 with a teleconverter, which you're diminished out to infinity focus basically, right? Because it's pretty far away, and then you're trying to crop from there. So there's at the upper limits of the camera, there's a huge difference. And I want to see kind of where that breaking point is and if that will be a problem in the future, given a couple years. The A6700 is awesome because it's so affordable and the video is still so good and the photos are still so good that it's awesome to have like a, hey, we're gonna go on like a around Michigan road trip, but we're not really packing up all our gear. We could throw that in the back of the car and not worry about it. We can go into a restaurant and it's just like in the car, and I'm not stressing it. So now we have a bird kit that we can take pretty much anywhere. It's not that crazy expensive. It's on a $5,000 kit, so that's really freeing, and I really love it. So that's the huge part of it. But I definitely want to see, now that I have kind of all of the parts, there's no like question marks. I can kind of see even an a7V. I'm going to be able to get those super cheap soon, because if they change it, then there's going to be a ton of them on the used market. Like, would it be worth going to one of those for her in the future versus my 7CR or whatever? Because you know me, I'm going to want more gear in general, because it's just, I'm an enthusiast. It's what I like to do. If the a7V is dope, I'm going to want it, period. But that's just, the nature of doing a podcast and being into gear and having the means to do it. I don't have a whole lot of other crazy expenses. I'm not rocking a couple of kids like you and things like that. So, Sadie and Jacob are not really the most costly critters. So, but yeah,
I don't collect guitars though, so that's something.
Yeah, that's fair. Those are also expensive, and so are the guns. So, I'm trying to stop dealing with either of those two things.
Are you though?
I am actually. I am.
Okay.
I'm really sick. I'd rather buy camera stuff and trips than guitars and
trips. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Actually using them, go some places.
Yeah. So basically we're playing. We're heavy birding right now. Elle's at, I think she broke 50 species already.
Nice.
Just for the year. So she has many more than that in Berta for a lifetime, but since January 1, she has 50 something.
Can I ask you something? With Berta, how are you approaching logging your birds? Because I log a bird that I photograph, and not if I see it, I don't log it. Yeah, I only log what I photograph.
Right. So
is that how you're going?
That's how we do it as well. We like Merlin and stuff. We're not like logging in Merlin like we were when we first started. We'll just listen to it and we use it as a tool. And then now that she's been fully shooting photos, she only posts on Berta ones that she got images of. Yeah. But I try to like get a pretty dang good photo. I'm starting to slip up a little bit because I get a little competitive and she's way ahead of me. I think I'm at 39 species. But I haven't. I don't think I've put in like a Canada goose yet. I haven't put in like a couple of basic birds. And then she's done a little bit more than me because I'll be at work or something, and she's had a couple of afternoons or mornings or whatever where she's gone out. So she's got some cool stuff, but we're deep in it already. So we're basically, every year's a big year for us, and we're just going to try to crush out as many as we possibly can.
Going to the Yucatan Peninsula is kind of cheating it too. You're gonna get like 100 on the first day.
Well, that's the goal. But
if you can identify all these things that you see,
and that's the fun part is like she'll be taking photos of the back of her camera and like running it through groups and using like that's
gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty wild. So it's funny because like I'm looking into the other stuff that we're gonna be doing, but we're gonna be birding like the whole freaking time. So there's some swimming to do and some jungle adventures to happen, and there's some other little things that I got to figure out logistically, but more or less it'll be fun.
Sounds like it.
So between that and hopefully getting a little bit involved with the Michigan Audubon Society people and the Capital City ones and trying to make some friends and try to get some of the harder birds. We've been really trying to get some more of these owls. She got a great shot of barred owl recently. Yeah, it's pretty epic. And so we were trying to find him. We found a giant hawk flying around in the woods, which I almost never see. And we were chasing him because we thought it was an owl, and he's like deep in this part of the woods. Like, it was really wild, and I got a cool photo of him. But so we're gonna keep trying. There's been some snowy owls. There's some birds right around us right now that we're still trying to get. There's been some snow buntings that we really want to get. With snow buntings, is that right? Yeah. But yeah, so It's fun. It's taking up a lot of my photography vibes at the moment, which is good, but
Sure.
it's getting me through winter. So
Yeah, I would
uh,
say so, which is a like not an easy one to get through even for birding for winter. It seems like you've got more birds that have access to food sources near you than I do. And you know, I've got so much wilderness around me. You'd think I'd get them, but I went out this morning after the downtown stuff. I went out to Presque Isle, and I was like, "Today's the day. I'm gonna break the 8-year curse and get an owl today."
yeah,
And I was looking and looking, and I went at this recommendation of some of the people in the club that I'm in now to the specific spot. I heard nothing. I saw nothing, and
dang,
I ran into two deer, and that was super cool. They got the big fluffy winter coats on,
yeah,
and they had their little snow beards on and everything, and it was great. No birds though.
yeah.
Not a single bird.
Dude, we're crushing it. I got like such a cool photo of a snowy beaked cedar waxwing the other day.
Oh wow.
We got some horned larks that were just in a field
Whoa.
like 15 miles from us or 20 miles from us or something.
Wow.
And Elle's been just like scoping stuff out on eBird, and then we're like, oh, we got to go find these things. And so yeah, there's a lot of birds, man. It's
I
pretty.
had one encounter with an eastern meadowlark a few years ago, and it was so cool. It was like on these tall grasses in the middle of a field, like pouncing on these bugs. It was like up on a reed and then boop down and then come back up with a bug and
Yeah.
then boop down. The only one I've ever seen, but it was so cool to watch.
Yeah, I would have never found a horned lark in my entire life because they just look like field sparrows. They literally,
Oh,
they're just like vibing. But once we got photos of them and we zoomed in, they got their little yellow pointy head,
uh,
and we're like, oh, I would have never
yeah,
guessed. I would have drove by them a million times if I didn't e-bird it or whatever.
yeah,
Um, and then I got my what's the guy, the kestrel. So
yeah.
we saw the
That's fun.
kestrel. Yeah, I really like the birds of prey. So we got a Cooper's recently in Port Huron and a bunch of ducks there.
Hmm.
What was that, El? Oh, and the Merlin, which our we realized we were looking at two birds, and it makes so much sense now that you know that the
Yeah,
peregrine and the Merlin were opposite ends of
yeah, it
where we were
does.
at in Marquette, and they
It
wouldn't
sure
stay by
does.
each other. But we were nervous because when I realized that Elle hadn't actually had one of her shots of the peregrine falcon in her Berta from back then,
Oh,
because we just took one and I was like, oh, it's the peregrine falcon, and I think somebody had mentioned it on her post or something that it was like
hmm.
that's a Merlin, I think. And yeah, so pretty crazy, but
Yeah, and I would say that our opportunity with those birds, they were pretty far away for the most part. So it's understandable that we could have confused them even with all this time passed. Because we really, I mean, when you told me that, it took me some zooming in on multiple pictures to be like, okay, I do see it.
yeah,
So it wasn't obvious on the day, of course, and we were expecting peregrine. We knew there was at least a few of them,
yeah,
and so to see them flying around together, it was like, oh, okay. But
yeah,
apparently they were fighting for the food source.
yeah,
I don't know that that the Merlin nests there, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did. It would just, I wish we knew on the day. That'd have been cool.
yeah, yeah. And it's funny because like I have some like really very clear in-flight shots of the peregrine falcon.
Yeah.
And then like the last bird right before we left that I was shooting, and then we walked a little bit more and I was shooting, and then I went under it and I got some shots right under it. The whole time that was a Merlin, and like they're very clearly different birds. They're not even close
Right.
looking. So I don't know if like we were just considering it to be like a female or something. Like maybe we thought it was,
Yeah.
a variation, but it didn't seem likely that two birds of prey like that would share so much space and not just like fight. I mean,
Right.
one of them,
Right.
the Merlin or the peregrine falcon, did go after some crows at one point. So,
Sure. Yeah.
so you never know. Maybe they were just, hey, we're gonna mess each other up if we fight, and neither of us are gonna
Yeah.
enjoy it. So how about we just like kind of leave each other alone?
Yeah. I guess so.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was good. As far as other shooting, again, it's winter, man. I'm trying to get a decent amount of stuff situated for work. I want to get some pretty exciting projects going with some other companies. I am hopefully gonna try and talk work into sending me down to Arizona soon, which I'll try to do some low key birding.
Cool.
But yeah, nothing too crazy. Now, we got the rumors of the Sony 400 to 800. Big birding vibes. I was really excited until I realized it's probably going to be pretty close to 3,000 euros.
Same. Yep.
And then also on Sony Alpha Rumors, the reports from the people using it were that it was underwhelming and sharpness, which I mean, it's a super zoom at that point, right? Like that's fat. 400 to 800 is crazy. So I definitely need to see. It's definitely one that I'm going to try and evaluate before I buy it. I want to try to rent one.
Sure.
But that's crazy reach. Super wild. So intrigued by that. And then we are still hoping to hear there's the I guess a 16 mil that I don't really care about that might release
1.8.
but those are supposed to be announced next week or so, the late February, 27th I think.
It's such a that is such an odd one. I don't care about it that much, and I think a lot of people are. I don't know this, but as a person who owns the 21.8, I'm not shelling out for 4 millimeters. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one because I don't know of too many other places that do such a fast 16. Maybe they could pull it off and be like considerably smaller than the 14.18 or whatever, and it's going to be really great for Astro, and it's going to be like $800 or maybe $1,000 around the little zooms. They were talking about maybe doing like the 50 to 105 like millimeter, but I think that got debunked. Part of that really weird shortened f2.8 series that they have going on, the 16 to 25 and the 24 to 50 or whatever.
So that's not happening, you think?
I think that's the last thing I saw is that I think it was the 16 and the 400 to 800 that are the ones coming.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that they're going to talk about an a7V at this launch? Do you hope?
I would hope. Yeah.
Are you?
Of course, I hope.
Are you thirsty for it?
Because I purchased a Nikon ZF.
Oh wow, he just jumped right into it.
I'm just jumping right into it. Okay, and I have to tie it in because the Nikon ZF is not a birding camera. It's not. It's a little better, but there's trade-offs.
Yeah.
It's got a lower resolution sensor, so a little less cropping ability, but it's got a faster burst rate, 14 frames per second mechanical but I'm seeing different things about that. I watched a bunch of videos, of course I did, and I'm seeing like some people said 11, some people said 14, some people said 12. I'm not exactly sure what the hard number is on that, but it looked like most people are saying 14 frames per second mechanical shutter, which is nice. And then I've heard that it can go up to 30 silent, but we'll see about that. But I also did see that the sensor readout is not great, so I probably wouldn't be using silent shutter on that body either. But I did get the 40 mil f2 to go with it.
Did you get the special edition or the normal one?
I got the normal. I didn't think the special edition just looked that good.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
It looks marginally better, but I don't know that it's worth any kind of more money, really.
I think I'd rather just adapt the vintage lenses that I want to use, and those will be, I have a couple that I can adapt.
Oh, cool.
So and that's fine. But I got the Viltrox autofocus adapter for Sony to Nikon, and hopefully that does just fine enough with the 150 to 600. And I'll test the back and forth on that. And I can imagine if it's shot for shot 14 FPS, I'll take it. But that being said, a7V is on the mind. I haven't sold the a7 IV. I'm using it to record right now. So I'll have two bodies in hand, and I'm hoping I fall in love with the ZF. Everything that I've been watching for the last year and a half about it, I love it. I watched GX Ace's video on it again because it's just a fantastic. He puts it all into the perfect words about why people want this camera and love this camera, and hopefully I feel the same when I get it. But a7V, it's gotta come out with the fast sensor readout. Of course, fast frames. Of course, a deeper buffer probably, because even with the fast SD cards that I have, I'm still running into buffer issues. So it's like if you're doing a lot of birding, the a7 IV is not, I don't think in 2025 worth holding on to for very long.
Sure.
Or did I say A7V? A7IV. So when the 5 gets announced, those will be the things I'm looking for. The sensor readout. We talked about this before. So yeah, it's on the mind, and I'll be watching. I'll be watching closely because I don't know what do you think you can get for an A7IV these days still?
1,800 probably, something like that.
Yeah,
you know,
that's an easy flip.
Right. Yeah, and even if you were like trying to get rid of it really fast, I think if you put one up for like $1,600, it'd probably fly off.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely worth considering. I think it's going to be perfect for work for basically unto infinity. So the work one will stay. I don't see a reason to replace it. I think it's really good for talking head stuff for video, and it's all good there. But
and if it's faster and has a higher resolution sensor, which it seems like that's what the rumors have been sticking to.
That's the biggest question mark for me. Is I really wonder what that sensor is going to be. Because
that's the one thing I never asked for.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Seriously, but
33 is totally fine.
Yeah, it's just a matter of having enough processing and a fast enough sensor readout.
Yes.
Which it does not. So like it'd be obviously super disappointing if it was the same sensor. I don't want it to get that much bigger though.
I don't. Before you go too far, I don't want 45 megapixels or whatever it's going to be if the sensor readout is the same.
Yeah. Because even if it's the same, it's going to be horrible.
I don't want it.
Yeah.
Just like 33 is great. Don't do that to the sensor readout and the frames per second. Don't do that to its potential bump in speed, because I think most people would agree that 33 is fine, and if you want more, there's a camera for more. You know?
Yeah, I wonder what they'll do though. I mean, there's a lot of options. They have, Sony makes a ton of sensors. They could easily drop a new sensor in this thing. They did from the 3 to the 4. There's no reason to not do it from the 4 to the 5. And again, we don't believe there's going to be an A7S4. So it's probably like to compete for the next couple of years in a hybrid camera, it has to have a decent readout for video. Nobody wants jiggle, so to sell, you still have to like min-max your, I need to sell a ton of this camera because this is the one that they're going to sell a ton of, right? The A9 III is incredible. They're not going to sell a ton of them. The A1 II is absolutely breathtaking. They're not going to sell a ton of them. They're super prohibitively expensive. So
but you know who sells a ton of cameras is Nikon with their Z6 III. And that camera is kind of defining the price range.
But I'd really like to see what the market actually says about that, because a lot of the like deeper creator stuff, the lenses still don't support Nikon a ton. I'm not seeing a ton of content creators at least switching to Nikon yet.
Sure.
So I don't really know what the market share for that camera is. It's the most competitive one for sure. I think the video specs and stuff are great, but I think the like diminished dynamic range and some of the like weird clipping issues in the blacks of the video plagued it for a lot of content creators that didn't want to deal with that. So
I think that was a sensor specific issue though, right?
It was the partially stacked thing. Yeah. So, and I don't know what that will mean for what Sony's going to do. They're going to try to avoid an issue like that.
That sensor was the reason why it was so otherwise spec heavy. I mean, for a hybrid camera, but spec for spec, disregarding the ecosystem and the market share and where Nikon has room to grow, which there's quite a lot of room to grow with some of the things they've been doing lately. I think that there's with the Z6 III defining that price range, A7V coming out at 2,500 with something that matches and maybe exceeds in a couple, like trades blows, but exceeds in a couple other areas, which I don't even know what that would look like. Maybe it's just that resolution bump, but trades blows across the board. That's what it's going to have to do.
Yeah. I agree. I don't know what ways it's going to, push the boundaries, but I think for them to get another couple years out of a new camera and sell a ton of them, especially with any kind of scares for tariffs coming, any kind of supply issues that I'm unsure exist or don't. It's just a matter of like, what can they push out? And fortunately, they're making their sensors. So the world kind of is their oyster when it comes to what they decide to do sensor-wise. And I think the sensor is going to dictate the rest of the spec.
It's
'Cause
true, but it feels like they have a lot of catch up to play. So how far ahead of the curve can they be when they finally release this thing?
well, I don't know, but I think the other question mark for hybrid shooters is still the S5 II, which is falling out of favor for a lot of people. I think Panasonic did a really good job pushing a lot of marketing for their stuff, but then people realized that it still just wasn't up to snuff with the Sony stuff, so people kind of all moved back as far as like the general meta in YouTube was concerned.
Yeah.
But that like balance of hybrid shooting where it's like this is going to be everything you need to create any kind of video content, but then you can shoot all photo related stuff with it. It's going to matter to really dial in a sensor that can pull that off. Do they go 4K 120 for no reason? Like, I don't think people do that anymore. I don't, like, most people I know aren't shooting a ton of slow-mo B-roll stuff. Like, nobody cares about it. It's not the stuff that's like really pushing. But again, we also didn't feel like there was a reason to do all this vlog centric stuff in the last couple of years. And all of these camera companies are still pushing vlog stuff. And I don't even know people vlogging. You know what I mean?
I don't know,
like,
but there must be a response in the sales to reflect the push for that.
I'm not seeing the major content creators doing that kind of content, so I don't know where that's coming from. Obviously, there's still a whole lot of energy in the small point and shoot stuff, so I don't know if that's going to affect if they go really gangbusters on a camera or sensor. But I guess we'll just have to see. I'm curious. I thought probably 10 episodes ago I thought I knew what an a7V would look like. Now it's a roll of the dice, because I'm less concerned with what I think they're going to do, knowing that all their cameras have S-Cinetone and S-Log3 and it all works really well and all of them are pretty good. We're in camera Shangri-La as far as that's concerned. So can they deliver a camera that we all want to buy?
Right.
Because they're going to make a lot of sales if they do. I think people still want it. I don't think that's slowing down. So, yeah. Well, that's all I have. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch base on?
Not really. Just, I guess, if you're listening from the Marquette area, we're still plugging away with that photography club. We had our second meeting yesterday.
Cool.
It went well. We had a few people show up. We talked about photos that we took in super cold conditions. I shared off the one and only encounter with an owl I've ever had with blue ice, and it was a snowy in 2017, and it's been many years since then since I've seen one. But we had a good time talking, and so if you're in the area, hit me up on Instagram or just come by. I think the next one's March 22nd, Saturday, 11 a.m. at Second Story Studio, downtown Marquette.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. And again, if you have anything to say, reach out to us in the comments. We'd love to talk to you guys about what you're up to, what you're photographizing, what you think the a7V is going to bring us. If you're into birding, what's your next big, white whale, as it were. If you're interested in the Discord, reach out to us on Instagram. Obviously, our Instagram is above on the screen and in the description if you're listening. On podcast stuff, reach out to us. We're happy to talk cameras. We're happy to talk photography. The Discord's pretty great. If you have been
great.
If you've been feeling like social media is just a bummer, I'm gonna start telling everyone they need to go build their own little community for the things that they enjoy and stay off of social media, because it's kind of a waste of your time.
Yeah.
So join our Discord and come chat with us, because it's focused and moderated, and it's not full of ads, and it's a good time.
And we're just seeing a bunch of good work and having a bunch of good conversation. It has been a good time.
Yeah. So thanks for listening.
That's it. See you guys later.
Bye.